Just a few days ago, the world's richest man and Donald Trump's biggest campaign contributor betrayed the president and called on Republicans in the Senate to kill Trump's signature piece of legislation, which throws 16 million people off of their health insurance to pay for more tax breaks for billionaires. Elon Musk did this not to protect the people who rely on Medicaid and food assistance to meet their basic needs, but because the bill doesn't go far enough to enrich him and his companies. Musk even said that Trump's reckless tariffs will cause a recession. Trump knows all of this. He knows that the Republican budget is politically toxic. He knows that the economy is crashing because of his policies, and he is desperate to change the subject. He sees the protests in Los Angeles as an excuse to unleash more chaos and distract the American people from the failing economy and his plans to cut Medicaid and food assistance. Remember, Donald Trump refused to call up the National Guard on January 6th when thousands of violent rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol in search of his own vice president. This isn't about law and order or protecting public safety. Donald Trump wants conflict and violence. House Democrats stand on the side of peaceful protests and condemn the violence that Donald Trump is rooting for. We will continue to fight for a stronger economy and lower costs. Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. Peacefully protesting is an American right. It's part of the rich tradition of our country. Burning cars, looting, and destroying property are crimes. And anyone who takes advantage of this situation and engages those crimes should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. State and local law enforcement have repeatedly said they have the resources necessary to handle the situation. It is completely un-American and needlessly provocative for Donald Trump to deploy National Guard and Marines to Southern California. So I'm going to talk about the National Guard first. The legal authority Trump is using is 10 U.S.C. Section 12406. I encourage all of you to read it. It very specifically says the only way he can do this is through the orders of the governors of the states. Governor Newsom clearly has not given this order. The National Guard troops are following unlawful orders. I ask every National Guard person who is under this order to read the order, to see if it came from Governor Newsom, and then to read the law, and then decide for themselves if they are following unlawful orders. Also turns out that when Secretary Hegseth ordered this deployment and carrying out those orders, he put all these troops into Southern California without federal funding for food, water, fuel, equipment. They were sleeping on the floor. They were sleeping on each other. It is a complete mess. Secretary Hegseth's repeated incompetence is next level. He needs to resign. And then in terms of the Marine deployment, we should not be deploying Marines against Americans. Marines are trained to kill the enemy. What are they going to do at this protest? I mean, are they going to shoot protesters? What exactly is their role? They are not trained to do crowd control. They are not trained to handle these kinds of situations. They are not trained for law enforcement. So I asked the president to rescind his orders. He's being needlessly provocative and inflammatory. And Chairman Aguilar is right. He is losing on his big, ugly bill. It is going to give massive tax breaks to billionaires, and it's going to be funded by the greatest healthcare cuts in U.S. history. So do not fall for the trap that the president is laying here with his shiny objects he's trying to do. Focus on how he's messing up the economy, messing up your healthcare. And with that, I want to introduce our amazing DCCC chair, Susan Del from Washington. She's going to be the field general that leads us to flipping the House next year.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Chair Aguilar and Vice Chair Lieu. This morning in caucus, we presented research on how House Republicans will lose the majority next year because of their one big broken promise. It's been only 2 weeks since House Republicans narrowly passed their legislation, and the more people learn about it, the more unpopular it becomes. Across the country, Americans have come out strongly against this tax scam. They've held protests outside of Republicans' district offices against the cuts to Medicaid and nutrition programs. And in the very few in-person town halls that Republicans have held, we've seen incredibly large crowds turn out in opposition to their legislation. But despite the overwhelming local opposition to the big ugly bill, from their constituents, vulnerable House Republicans are embracing it and resorting to lies when talking about it. Well, they can lie all they want, but there's no denying the objective harm that it will cause. Independent, nonpartisan analysts have said instead of lowering costs for everyday people, House Republicans' big ugly bill raises costs on them. It will kick 16 million Americans off of their health insurance. It cuts food assistance programs like free school lunch. It takes a chainsaw to these popular programs to pay for tax breaks for the wealthiest few. This big ugly bill affirms everything voters already think about Republicans, that they don't work for the American people. They work for the billionaire class. It's clear that public support for the Republican agenda is cratering. Recent public polling shows that a majority of voters in House Republican battleground districts oppose the bill. They also revealed that most Americans agree the GOP tax scam will help the wealthy and hurt working families. These public surveys line up with the internal research we've done in partnership with our Senate colleagues, and it's what we presented to the caucus this morning. We found that just 25% of voters think the GOP tax scam will help them and their families. The same internal research showed that Republicans' massive cuts to popular programs are toxic with voters. We see there is clear argument that is incredibly persuasive to voters. Instead of lowering costs, Republicans are raising costs, cutting health care and food assistance to pay for billionaire tax giveaways. This vote is the defining contrast of the midterms. Remember, every single vulnerable House Republican voted for this disastrous piece of legislation. And since it passed by one vote, each one cast the deciding vote. Any one of them could have stood up to stop it, but instead they sided with the ultra-wealthy while costs are out of control and everyday Americans are struggling. With this vote, vulnerable House Republicans have already sealed their political fate, and it's one that they will come to regret next year when House Democrats retake the majority. Thank you. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Susan. Questions? Nick?
A little while up here, Congresswoman Yvette Clark, chair of the Black Caucus, said that the deployment of troops in LA could be an impeachable offense. Do you believe this is impeachable?
I've said before from this podium that House Democrats aren't focused on impeachment today. We're focused on holding the president and House Republicans accountable for their policies that attack the basic needs like health care and food assistance that their policies are leading with. There will be plenty of time when Susan DelBene guides us to the majority for us to exercise oversight where we can ask some very difficult questions, the policies that this administration is doing currently. But right now that isn't our focus. Andrew?
With regards to ICE more generally, beyond just what we're seeing in California, as an Appropriations Committee member, if Democrats retake the House in 2026, do you think that the appropriations process should be used to try to make some reforms at ICE based on what we've seen in the last few months?
First, what we need to do is have an appropriations process that works. Right now, House Republicans are wrapped around the axle, bending over backwards, trying to do everything that Donald Trump wants, and so they're marking up bills that are incomplete. We're going to see that full committee markup start today, this afternoon. We just heard from Secretary Hegseth, and then 30 minutes later, we go and mark up the subcommittee bill on defense. And we'll have that in front of the full committee on Thursday. These bills are incomplete. But the second point I would say is the administration and Donald Trump have to follow the appropriations bills. Tom Cole said months ago that these were advisory. So which House Republican message are we going to get? Are appropriations bills law, or are they advisory and it's up to the administration and Article 2 to interpret? We don't know. We need to know that House Republicans believe in the appropriations process, and we will use that to make policy changes that are important with respect to funding government. That's how we've always done, and we've respected Democrats and Republicans have respected that process over the years. And when we were in control, we did make changes to appropriations bills that got to core policies that were important to us, and we'll do the same when we're in the majority next time. Right.
Thank you, Chairman. The USDA is expected to roll out an initiative to essentially prevent people on SNAP programs from using SNAP benefits to purchase sugary drinks. Is that something Democrats would support or oppose?
What we know is that these basic needs programs are under assault by Donald Trump and House Republicans. Their own reconciliation plan would cut hundreds of billions of dollars, over $200 billion, out of the Department of Agriculture and these food nutrition programs. We agree in healthy diets. We agree that there are choices that people can make that will both expand the money that is given to them and ensure healthier lives. What we also know is that these programs like food nutrition and WIC go to the neediest of Americans. They go to people who are just trying to buy, formula and food for their families. That is under attack with the House Republican reconciliation plan, and that's what we're focused on. There's plenty of opportunity for committees to work through what this looks like and what the definition of a sugary drink is, and that's a fair conversation for us to have. But let's not lose sight that these programs are under attack by Donald Trump and House Republicans.
Thank you. We've seen Democrats give some contradictory views on the LA riots. We have Senator John Fetterman, who has called them anarchy and true chaos, and we have Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who's denied that any violence has taken place. How would you characterize what we're seeing from these individuals in LA right now with Waymos lit on fire and stores looted and things of that nature?
Here's the reality. Local authorities have this under control. There are a couple square blocks where a police presence is needed. A police presence, not a military presence, a police presence might be needed. And that should be the focus of local law enforcement. What Donald Trump is doing is inflaming those tensions. But as the vice chair said, anyone who is lawless or loots or commits a crime should be punished. That is the House Democratic Caucus position. What we do believe is in peaceful protest and in people being able to exercise their ability to observe ICE agents carrying on their activity, as well as standing on a street corner and holding a sign and speaking out and speaking their mind. That is completely appropriate activity. And what Donald Trump is doing is inflaming that by sending in the Marines and by mobilizing the National Guard under dubious legal rationale, as the vice chair mentioned. But I would argue, listen to the LA members. I'm from Southern California. I'll defer to my colleague who represents LA County. But this is something that local law enforcement clearly has under control, and the images on TV keep showing the same, burning car over and over. 99% of the city is moving on as business as usual.
I'm glad you brought up the burning cars. So burning Waymo cars is despicable, and I urge that those folks be prosecuted who engage in that action. The National Guard could have done nothing about it because the unlawful orders they were given say they are to protect federal property, federal buildings, and federal personnel. That has nothing to do with Waymo cars. So even if they were right there at the scene, there was literally nothing they could have done without violating their orders. And let's say Marines at the scene. What would you want these Marines to do? Like shoot these people? It's ridiculous to have Marines there. This is a law enforcement activity that should be handled by state and local law enforcement, not the United States Marines. They are not trained to do this.
So the oversight election for ranking member is about 2 weeks away. Has leadership decided who they are willing to endorse for that post?
Our responsibility as a vice chair and our responsibilities are to conduct the election. I don't think any of our colleagues on June 24th would want us to conduct the election if we were rooting for someone. So we're going to conduct the election in a way that is appropriate, and all of the candidates for this position know that. We know them all very well. Each of them has a skill set and is suited to lead in a variety of areas, and we'll let the caucus decide, and we'll respect that decision.
Does leadership have a response to Chairman Comer's expanded investigation into the alleged cover-up of President Biden's mental acuity?
Is this the mental acuity, or is this the auto pen, or basically everything that Chairman Comer touches turns into a clown car? I mean, that's just the reality of it. This is someone who is very unserious about exercising oversight, and that's how we're treating it. This is not a very serious effort, but he's got to go through what he has to go through to appease the friends of Donald Trump along the way. Mike.
Your road to the majority in 2026 is going to depend not only on protecting frontliners, but also picking up some Republican seats in some of these purple districts. These are districts where some of the images coming out of L.A. might play to the Republicans' advantage. So what's your message to the voters in that district that you do believe wanted free speech, but also protecting law and order, given some of the images that we're seeing on TV?
Yeah, just that we believe in free speech, and that we believe in law and order. These two things can go hand in hand. But our message broadly to that audience is going to be, your Republican member of Congress voted to kick hundreds of thousands of people off of their health care and take away their basic needs. That's exactly what's at stake here. And that's what we're fighting for. That's the importance of dealing with reconciliation in front of us, and the contrast that we will make between now and next November. But I'll let the chair speak to it.
I agree. The contrast is a broken promise from Republicans who promised to lower costs on day one and have done nothing to lower costs, have been raising costs, kicking people off of health care, cutting programs that people depend on. That was the number one issue last election. It's the number one issue in Americans' minds across the country right now. They've only seen chaos and dysfunction from this administration, and a Republican Congress who is unwilling to stand up for working families. That's the contrast we'll continue to make.
All right. Thank you very much.
How's the baseball team going to do?
We're going to be okay. I mean, it's been a challenging environment the last 3 years, but we've got some new folks. We're very excited about it. It's going to be a good night, and a lot of money will be raised for charity. That's the important piece, but we're looking forward to it.